It's a month since the federal government lifted its suspension of live cattle exports to Indonesia, but the industry is only starting to get back into gear. The first shipment is expected to leave Darwin within days, but beef producers say many more are needed to clear the backlog of stock. A recent survey found the ban has come at a big cost to Australia's north, with up to 300 people losing their jobs. Sarah Everingham reports from Darwin.
It's a big relief that we're finally moving again. I just hope that we can keep moving.
It's here just south of Darwin that cattle are briefly held just before being shipped to Indonesia. Because of the ban on live exports, these cattle have been waiting for more than 8 weeks. But their time here will be soon up. They'll be put on a ship to Indonesia, the first cattle to be exported since the government lifted its ban on live exports.
We have 4,500 head yarded presently. And over the coming days, they'll be getting their protocol treatments and ready for shipment to Indonesia over the next week.
It's been a frustrating and expensive time for the yard operator, Nick Thorne, who's keen to see the trade back at full capacity.
The ban has been decreased turnover, and we've tried to keep we've kept everyone employed, so we've been paying wages with not a lot of work going on.
The cattle here belong to Elders, one of the largest agribusinesses in the country. With its own abattoir and feedlot in Indonesia, Elders can satisfy new government conditions on live export, which mandate exporters account for each beast at every step from the farm to the point of slaughter. Other exporters are applying to resume their trade too, but so far only this one shipment of 3,000 Elders cattle has been given the government's tick.
I think it's good to actually see some cattle moving. It's literally going to be a trickle, but I guess it's psychologically it provides some sort of hope.
Here on Mount Ringwood Station, owner Marcus Rathman runs about 4,000 head of cattle over 460 square kilometres in the Adelaide River region. He has 500 head of cattle ready for live export, but even with the ban lifted, there's still no sign when he'll get the green light.
We've got to see not just 3,000 leave, we've got to see 50 or 60 to ease the pressure that's built up on properties.
Mr Rathman says producers now face the problem of overstocking. That means it's becoming more difficult and expensive to feed cattle. He has growing fears for the welfare of the animals.
Death from overstocking or malnutrition is a horrible death, It's far worse than anything you'd ever see in Indonesia.
You would like to ban live export over the next 3 years.
Beef producers are keen to spread the message. They're still facing problems.
So live export opened up in 91, and when the abattoirs closed down.
Especially to a southern senator who wants to ban live exports for good.
There's huge welfare benefits through the live export trade.
The independent South Australian Senator Nick Xenophon says there was overwhelming evidence cattle were being mistreated in Indonesia. He's introduced a bill to phase out live exports over the next 3 years. Top-end beef producers have been taking him on a special tour to point out the difficulties in making his plan work.
You need to understand the fundamentals of Northern Australia before you go down making these altruistic sort of policy decisions and putting up legislation on that basis.
If you put up an idea, you've got to be accountable for that idea, and that's what being up here is for. And they've got strong views, I've got strong views, but, in a democracy, that's what it's all about.
Senator Xenophon is looking into whether abattoirs in Northern Australia could provide an alternative market for producers.
I'm still faced with the dilemma that 30 years ago we processed our meat here. We did so much here. We had 6 processing plants here in the Northern Territory, and now, there isn't one.
If it was commercially viable to have a meatworks in Northern Australia, there would be meatworks in Northern Australia.
Senator Xenophon is also pushing for mandatory stunning of cattle. Under the government's new rules, cattle must be treated in line with international standards, but that does not mean they'll all be stunned before slaughter.
My view has always been that stunning should be the appropriate standard. It is the humane standard, it is the best standard, but I also think we need to get our own act together here in Australia, where there are abattoirs that don't stun cattle, where for halal and kosher killing They don't do that, and I don't think that's acceptable either.
Elders says these cattle soon headed for Indonesia will all be stunned before slaughter. As the trade slowly resumes, a government-commissioned inquiry is finalising its report on the live export industry. Beef producers say they can't wait too much longer for the industry to get back into gear.
It's a real perfect storm that we're heading towards, which needs to be managed very, very carefully so that we can see people survive through this current cycle into next year and preserve the integrity of the industry and the families that are part of it.
The Agriculture Minister wasn't available today but said in a statement the federal government is working with exporters to meet the new requirements on animal welfare. Sarah Everingham with that report.